Live on WFLA now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
Today we're talking about bouncing back and your power to reinvent yourself at any age. Joining me now is Double-Certified Nutritionist Martha VanCamp, who has worn a lot of hats in her life, just like me. It's so great to see you, my friend.
It's great to be here.
So let's talk about reinventing ourselves. I think especially as women, we think that we have some kind of expiration date, or we're going to be put out to pasture. But really, we don't, and it gives you so much to look forward to in life.
It really does. And so I like to think of it this way. Almost about every decade, I feel like we owe it to ourselves, as you said, especially women, as maybe working moms or even moms who work from the house. I mean, that's such a crazy, admirable job that I don't think I could have ever done full time. But I think we owe it to ourselves to think about, how do I want to reinvent myself? And that doesn't have to be a complete redo, but what do I want my next 10 years to look like? Because we get so wrapped up in being moms or being full-time career women that we just, I think, very easily lose track of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I think, like in my industry, which I started off in broadcast news back in 1988, which is a really long time ago, once you grab a hold of the prize, you feel as though you cannot let it go because it's so hard to break into the industry. It's so hard to climb the ranks of the industry that once you get there, you feel like you have to hold on for dear life. And then in my personal case, it was vocal cord issues and health issues that sidelined me. And I got to tell you, at that particular moment in life, I was so broken because I only knew the one thing. And I think so many people get caught in this rat wheel of life that they only know the one thing and they're almost scared to reinvent themselves.
1,000,000,000 times agreed. And Sarah, your producer, your amazing producer.
Yeah, Sarah Smith, get on in here,
Hi,
girly pop.
This is a special episode.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, full disclosure, Sarah is my daughter. But I 1,000% agree with you. And Sarah and I were talking about this weekend, how almost if you don't think about reinventing yourself or changing your scope or broadening your scope every decade, there could very well be something, whether it's a divorce or a relationship breakup or a health issue, that will sideline you to almost force you to rethink, okay, am I truly still on the path that I'm supposed to be on? The other thing that we've talked about is, imagine if when we all graduated from college, if that first job that you got out of college was the only job that you were ever allowed to have for your entire life.
I'd still be in Montgomery, Alabama, y'all.
I'd still be in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh my gosh.
But all that said, I think we don't allow ourselves permission enough to rethink, okay, I've done this for 7 years. I've done this for 10 years. I've done this for 30 years. Maybe I should be, do I really want to be doing this? And I would never ask you that on this platform. Like, did you have these thoughts maybe before you got sick?
Thinking, yes.
Am I still supposed to be here?
Yes.
But you're right. We hold on to it for fear of what the heck
That's
is
why I think
next?
everything happens for a reason.
Right.
I do. I agree. And I think it's important to point out that reinventing yourself isn't always easy, because when Channel 8 came to me and they're like, hey, listen, we realize you can't do 4.5 hours of this like grinding news every day of just nonstop talking, but maybe your voice can, handle this new show we're trying to launch or to reboot. And I know that your amazing daughter, it was along for the ride for many, many years of building Bloom to what it is today. But in the beginning, it was like 2 men in a truck. It was like,
beep, beep.
Beep,
Oh
beep,
my
here we
gosh.
come. It's me and another lady with Elizabeth Motley, our executive producer, working tirelessly, sometimes 7 days a week, to put the show on a tiny little platform of, WTTA. And, I'm shooting and editing all my own video, and it just seems like every roadblock that could possibly exist was there. And after being the little engines that could, and your incredibly talented daughter, Sarah, joining the ranks a couple of years back, we've built it into a globally syndicated show that, is exposure to 350 million homes.
Wow.
There was a lot of humble pie, slice after slice after slice being eaten along the way. Yeah. But that's just part of it. But once you get to the other side, it's amazing.
You're right. And so as you so well said, reinventing yourself is not easy. I think about the landmines that we all have to go through in order to see the payday or to reap the benefits. Or, if you even think about it as like farmers, they have to, plot and seed their crops. So I've never been a farmer, so, I don't even know.
Do you want to be a farmer?
No, I would, as I've joked about, plants come to my house to die. But all that said is, like, you don't see all that you've learned or how you've grown or how you've developed or how perhaps maybe you've had to rely more on your faith during that eating the humble pie, as you refer to it. But then you look back and you're like, wow, I really, with a team, generally it's a team of people who help you propel to the next stage. But when you get to that next stage, and as you're growing through that next stage, you can look back and be like, wow, there were, you see who your true friends are.
Oh, yes, you
see, who in your family truly supported you, all of those things. But, it's interesting. You mentioned the vocal cords. Sarah had a concussion her freshman year, which really
I wasn't always in the
diverted.
production path.
Yeah. I remember that. Talk to me about your journey, Sarah, and then how faith, because your mom just touched on faith, and I want to talk about that too.
Well, I think for me, it was my freshman year of college, which wasn't really that long ago, 6 years ago, I think. I wanted to be working in the government, which is crazy to think about. And then I had a concussion, had to medically withdraw, came home to Florida here, and then
laid on my couch and slept for weeks,
which I don't even remember, which is scary.
Right.
But then that propelled me to changing my major to communications and then getting into the production industry. And then 2 years later, I got the internship with Bloom, and then now I'm here. So goes back to the everything happens for a reason. And then moving here, I got really involved in church, and then my whole faith journey. I mean, that has been an incredible 2 years of just transforming my life over the last 2 years.
And your mom has set the perfect example for ebbing and flowing and embracing change in life. I know that you, like myself, you very much ingrained in the television industry. And then you went through your own personal journey of weight loss, of losing close to 150 pounds, like 140? 140 pounds, and writing a book and launching this incredible business, the entrepreneur that you are, of coaching other women. And now, you're reinventing yourself again. I mean, there's so many chapters of this life, but if we keep turning the pages, there's so much to live.
There is. And this one little saying, I think, really puts a pink bow on this whole conversation. You're either living or you're dying. There's no in between, right? So you're either choosing to live and move forward. You can think of it like building a muscle. You're either building your muscles or you're losing them. So I whenever I get frustrated, I think, okay, did I really want to get up early this morning? No. Do I hate getting out of bed every single morning? I do. But I think, okay, I'm either choosing to live or I'm literally slowly dying. And as I go into a whole new decade of reinventing myself yet again by choice, because sometimes we don't reinvent by choice, and that can be even harder. And I think that's where you do lean on your faith quite a bit. But when you're choosing to reinvent yourself, there are going to be big challenges and there are going to be stumbling blocks. And even as a 52-year-old, I realize now in this next perhaps decade and a half of my life, there's going to be a lot more humble pie. Like, we're never done eating humble pie. I think there's seasons of eating humble pie. But I think another one of the big points that you've touched on, Sarah's touched on, is that if we choose not to reinvent or continue to push ourselves with new goals, then I truly do believe that there will be something in our lives, whether it's a divorce or a failed relationship or something health-wise, will smack you upside the back of the head and force that decision to be made for you. And for me, it was contracting the Epstein-Barr virus. And I knew about 10 years into coaching thousands of women through their own weight loss journey that it was probably time for me to hang up my hat. I was emotionally drained, helping all these women and not really always helping myself. Hello, mom syndrome. But also I just was realizing that I didn't have the capacity to give anything more at this point. I mean, it was probably 10,000, 11,000, 15,000 women over a period of 10 years. And I was just burnt out and done. And so I thought, it's probably time for me to sell this weight loss business called BeFit Systems. But I was scared too. I didn't know, like, who am I if I sell this? Who am I if I quit my job? Who am I if I look for a new job? Like, who are we? And so I think a lot of times we just sit there and we're paralyzed by fear. And so we sit in the pit of hell sometimes willingly. And so when I was just too afraid. And so I took a couple steps to sell parts and pieces of the business so that I could step away. And then suddenly I had emergency appendectomy. 2 days later, after I got out of the hospital for a week, I was fine and then quickly went downhill again and contracted the Epstein-Barr virus, which is, as you and I have talked about a lot, is something that never goes away. We can put it into remission, but a very stressful or physiological stress can bring it right back. So I think that's my biggest takeaway and my biggest words of wisdom is if we, whether you're a man or a woman, don't really consciously slow down to really assess, should I still be here where I am right now? And if you're hearing that voice in the back of your head saying, probably not, maybe you should explore fill in the blank, XYZ, then I would always say to anyone, whether it was my child or my best friend, I would say, then you should explore that. Explore it to the nth degree, because otherwise I think something else might happen to smack you upside the back of the head to stop you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people that the world has to be crumbling or down around me in order for me to understand, like, hey, Gail, wake up.
But maybe that's because we put our identity in other things.
Oh, absolutely. Our ego and identity.
You put your identity in work.
Right.
Well, then when work's not going well,
right.
then your life's not going to go well.
Right.
That is
put
true.
your identity in relationships and outside of your faith.
Right.
Your identity should be in Christ. And if it's outside of that, then I think that's when we go. And then we reach a point when we can't go. And then we crumble.
Right. Because it's all egocentric, right?
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. And sometimes, I think for a lot of people that you get caught in the rat race because you got bills to pay, lights to keep on, mouths to feed, children to take care of. And maybe you don't trust yourself. Maybe, putting the ego on the back burner, maybe, it's self-doubt that's driving you to continue on some crazy path that deep down inside you shouldn't be on because you don't know what you're going to do. And I think that that's the big takeaway, is that you can't see life outside of what you know.
I think this number is correct. If it's not correct, it's really darn close. But I think it's 85% of the bad things that we think are going to happen never happen.
Right.
So, whether we're fearful to start a new career, fearful to start a business, fearful to write the book, fearful to just go on an adventure and jump out of an airplane, obviously.
Which Gail won't do.
I'm not doing that.
What?
She won't do
it.
Gail, I've done it twice.
She will do everything but that.
Okay. I don't know what it is about that one.
We got to talk Gail into this. But it's like 85%. It's something ridiculously obnoxious. Of all the bad things we think could happen, never happen. And so we spend so much time living in anxiety and dealing with emotions, like processing emotions that don't even need to be processed. And so that is what, makes you paralyzed to write the book, to buy the house, to, decide to become a realtor and study for 2 weeks and think you're failing the exam. And then suddenly you pass the exam. But all these things make you so fearful of just taking that next tiny step. You don't have to have it all figured out. We all know that, right? We've all seen that picture or that meme of the staircase that says, you don't have to climb it all. You just got to take one step and then you take the next step. But we try and plot it all out. Why? Because we want to be in control of everything. And you realize,
what that is.
Right?
That's what it is.
You got to stop trying to be in control. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck at that first step, or just look at the freaking staircase instead of taking one step, right?
Absolutely. I do want to circle back to what Sarah was touching on with the disclaimer that we always say before we ever talk about faith and our belief system, that I respect anyone's belief system, however you choose to live your life. and whatever propels you forward. I stand by you no matter what.
Yep.
You do not have to believe what I believe in. But I will say that, every time that I have stepped away from faith or, not leaned into it fully,
Right.
is when my life really does fall apart.
Yeah, and you can use faith. You can use, for some people, it's a North Star. It's just a higher being, something that is beyond themselves, right? But I think you're right. Every time we try and pave a path that isn't in alignment with our faith or our North Star, things don't go real well.
They don't go really well at all. And I always like to point to Joel Osteen, how he described it, where if you are starting a backyard barbecue and you have all the coals there and they're all beautifully illuminated red, and you move one coal away, it turns dark pretty quickly.
It's a good analogy.
And the only way that you can get it to breathe light again is to bring it back to, the other coals, and, kind of like Cain. And I think that growing up in the Catholic Church, where I didn't really quite understand what was being told to me all the time, and no, I'm not throwing shade on Catholics. It just was a very formal, upbringing. But now to really get to sit deep into it, it's almost like a therapy of sorts, of lifting you when you feel like you can't really figure out the answers on your own.
Yep, it's a community that I think is often indescribable. From the standpoint of, you go into your faith-based center or your church, and there's an energy there. Probably
It gives you a sense of peace.
Right. It gives you a sense of peace. It's a really good, I think, hard reset button for what maybe you're going through or what's happened that week. But you're also, I think, and this is really big when you're trying to reinvent yourself, is you're surrounded by a community of like-minded, like you just spoke of. And so even though you may not be best friends with the person you're sitting next to or the people 2 rows in front of you, it's the energy of being surrounded in the like-minded community that I think gives a lot of us the purpose and passion to continue for another week and figure out, okay, how's this week going to go? Or maybe this next week's going to be crappy, but I'm going to be back here next Sunday for that hard reset button.
Yeah. And wherever you find your tribe in life, I mean, obviously for us, it's, through a church community, but wherever you find your tribe and the people that lift you is really who you need to be standing next to as you try to reinvent yourself for what's next in life.
I keep using little sayings, but I think they're really important here is, we could each look at our 5 closest friends and I can tell you where your life is going, or Sarah's 5 closest friends and where her life is going. And I think, again, it goes back to anytime you're trying to reinvent yourself is who's going to be your cheerleader? Who are those 5 closest friends? Who's going to lift you up when you think you're completely failing? And who's going to be there to celebrate with you? And listen, if you weren't there lifting me up when I wanted to cry and I thought I was going to fail, and you didn't try and speak some type of life back into me, pull me out of the pit of hell when I can't pull myself out, then you don't deserve to be with me celebrating on the other side as well. So those 5 people, my dad used to say he only had one arm. His right arm was amputated when he was 11. Talk about a fighter. But he always said, Martha, you only need enough friends for one hand. And I'm like, yep, that's your 5 closest friends. And that's so important. And that can be your community as well.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Right.
That is really, really powerful. Martha, from your own personal journey of reinventing yourself, any words of wisdom for people out there that might be struggling to believe in themselves, that next chapter is just a page turn away?
Yeah. As you said at the very beginning, I've lost 140 pounds. Prior to that, I went through a really tough divorce. I've lost, as any person has. I'm no different than anyone else, but as any person has, no matter your age, you could be in your 20s, and I'm sure you could still say, I've lost a lot, right? You've lost a lot of friends. I've lost a lot in my life. But I think the most important thing is just to never give up and realize that fear, your own perception of fear, is the only thing stopping you from anything you want to do. And whether that's lose weight or start a new career or leave that abusive relationship, it is the only thing. The gap between you and success is how you perceive fear. And that's all a mental game. We could do a whole nother health club on fear. But I think for me, I remember going through a lot of therapy during my divorce, and my therapist, who, at some points I was going twice a week. And she said to me, you've got a gift, Martha. You have next to no fear. She said, but that's also a curse, right? Your greatest gift can also be your greatest curse. But so I think I get being riddled by fear. And so I would just always say, even though some people perceive me as fearless and I just keep going like the Energizer button, I would definitely say even me, I do deal with fear, but you've got to consciously work on a daily basis to bring that gap of fear, that river of fear, or maybe that ocean of fear that's in front of you, and realize a lot of the things you're fearing and wasting a ton of emotional energy on between you and success will never, ever happen. So just go. Take the step, take the class, start writing the book, whatever you want to do. You've got to stop being riddled by fear.
Is that something that you found as a common thread when you were coaching women on their weight loss journeys through BeFit?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that I saw time after time after time, like rinse and repeat, was I've tried this before. This is not so therefore this thing is not going to work for me. And I just would say, people, give me 12 weeks and I'm going to blow your socks off. And if people listened to my direction, yeah, we blew their socks off. And we showed them that losing weight, diets are evil. They're another 4-letter word. This should be a life journey. It's all about healing your relationship that was probably piss poor as a child, healing your relationship with food. And once people realize that food is your silent best friend, then you can realize that, okay, food is fuel and I need it to live. So that was a common rinse and repeat. This isn't going to work. I'm so scared. I'm fearful. I've been burnt by this before. I've been burnt by every diet before. So that is a common thing. I think, as you and I have talked about before, is that our subconscious brain feeds all these negative thoughts, and those negative thoughts overpower our conscious brain, which is where our truth center is. And so the more we're listening to our subconscious brain, which is false, it's lies, and the more we're believing that, of course, it's going to cloud the truth center, the conscious brain. Like, really? That's probably not going to happen. So I think it's just continually reminding yourself, that's probably not going to happen. Take the step, do it. And listen, if you fall, there's probably going to be a best friend or a spouse or even an adult child that's going to pull you back up, and you've learned something. You fell down. It's like, why we tell our kids all the time, it's going to be okay. I'm going to take the training wheels off. You're going to be great. Like, just hold on and keep pedaling. But it's almost as if we as adults revert back to kids and we're asking for training wheels again. Why? Come on. You fell down, slap a Band-Aid on your knee, get back up on the bike. Let's go.
Amen to that. I love that.
I agree. Amen to that. That was great. I like that analogy.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Any other final thoughts or questions that you have?
Well, I feel like a big thing is, to what you said, Mom, is learning to live in the uncomfortable, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Because I think if we can get caught in that rat race, in that complacency, and get stuck. And so I just wanted to reiterate that. I think we got to be cool with being uncomfortable. Otherwise, how else do you grow?
Amen to that. Well, listen, Martha VanCamp, it is always a pleasure to have you. If you are in the Tampa Bay market, you should tune in on Wednesday at 2 p.m. on WFLA. You'll hear Martha talk even more about reinventing yourself and getting over mental hurdles that are keeping you from being your best self when it comes to health and wellness. For now, thank you so much for joining us.